Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on our Saudi WebEx. As we were just talking about, this is actually one of our last WebExes of 2020. So we are so excited to be able to reach out to our clients within these last few weeks of 2020. Gosh, what a year 2020 has been. Who would have thought it when we started planning back in January of this year? So we're really excited that you're being able to join us for the next hour, as we really want to give you some great insights of two very important and thought-provoking reports that have come out from global leadership. So today's WebEx is going to be roughly about an hour. We're going to spend about 40 minutes going through some of the slides, pulling out those key figures, that key information from these two reports. Myself, my name is Sam Hayes. I'm based in the MMB office in Dubai, been in the region about 3 years, and you'll notice that we've got 3 of my colleagues joining as well. So we've got Adiba, Mark and Omar, who join from our local Saudi offices in Hobart, Jeddah and Riyadh, and they each bring their own expert advice, either whether it's claims analytics, sales advice or placement. So we will be interacting with Adiba, Mark and Omar throughout, but we'd also love you to interact as well. So we have actually got 3 polls. So we'd love to start hearing your thoughts and kind of what's your thought process around what's been going on in 2020 and what do you want to do in 2021. So just find a little bit of housekeeping. If you have got any questions, we are going to leave about 20 minutes towards the end of this session where you can ask anything you want to do. So at the bottom of your screen, you've got a Q&A, so please feel free to start typing away and thinking about what you want to ask us. So, as I mentioned, 2020 has been a year of no other, and it really has brought to light some nuances and COVID and lockdown and what is really going on in the world. So when we think about the overall holistic approach to health and well-being and employee benefits, this was something that was a nice to have. It was something that HR used to sort of concentrate on in silo, but now we're getting much more interest from our C-suite. We want to understand return on investment, sustainability, affordability. So therefore, the overall holistic packages of employee propositions is really coming to the forefront of a lot of our clients. And we know the health and resilience of our people affects the overall health and resilience of our business. So what we wanted to talk to you about very quickly is kind of what's gone on in 2020, kind of on a micro level, so sort of local to Saudi and the Middle East, but also on a macro level. So what's kind of impacted us globally. So the first thing we want to talk about is the market volatility. So again, some countries have gone into recession. Some countries have kind of stalled on their workforce and their economics. And we know specifically in Saudi that the dollar, the price of oil, really does affect a lot of our clients within Saudi. So what's happening in that market? How is that affecting local clients, local cash flow, and overall decisions about what the business wants to do on that financial standard going forward? Some of our clients, very unfortunately, did have to make some of their staff unemployed this year. Again, that was generally towards the beginning of lockdown, so sort of March, April, May time. It was cash flows issues, it was finance issues, and unfortunately, that was some of the realistic circumstances for some of our Saudi clients. But very happy to inform you that we seem to be over the worst. Businesses are coming back to normal, slowly returning to the office. The economic status of the kingdom is slowly starting to pick up from where we were earlier on in the year. And also, a big thing that sort of happens in the Middle East is kind of digital health and that overall wellness proposition. So digital health, so again, very high level, telemedicine, EAPs. We did have tech where you could wear it, the Garmin watch, things like that to count your steps. We're now talking about edible technology. So again, you consume a tablet that reads your data. We've got apps on our phones that can read our blood pressure. There's diabetes programs that again can be monitored from our phones. So the world of technology has really evolved within 2020, and businesses, techs, companies, medical providers have realized we need this digital solution. Lockdown kind of brought that to our forefront, but again, we need to be keeping up with the modern world and what the modern workforce is asking for. Coming into that again is that whole data and technology. So again, clients want data, they want to understand their risk. We're now talking about artificial intelligence and how is AI helping the overall employee benefits proposition and value. And some of these conversations are really exciting that we're having with some of our clients. And finally, health and well-being. So again, this was maybe a nicety to have a couple of years ago, but now we're looking at that wider holistic wellness offering. So we're not just talking physical health, BMI fairs, know your numbers fairs, but we're broadening that conversation and that understanding. We're talking about mental health, we're talking about spiritual health, financial health, social health. All of these different aspects are part of this wider holistic wellness proposition. And employees are asking for help. How do we start this journey? What should we be doing? And I think that's one thing that's great about Saudi and the rest of the Middle East is that we are starting this journey. We are basically starting this conversation. What do clients need? What does the workforce need? And again, very exciting times that we're having. Next page. So we're now going to be handing over to Mark, who again heads up our sales leadership within Saudi and is going to be talking about some unique Saudi challenges that we've been recognizing and chatting with our clients.
Thanks very much, Sam, and good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be speaking with you today. We're just going to touch on some KSA challenges that we see within the KSA environment, and in actual fact, they're regional challenges as well, and some of them, of course, are global in perspective too. The first point is transient population. So I think the whole region and KSA has had a transience in its working population. What we mean by that is you might have waves of expats coming into the country and then leaving, and there are dynamics for organisations around how they attract and retain those types of populations. But I think COVID sort of turned it on its ear a little bit. I think as Sam said, we've had reasonably high levels of redundancy happening for a period and people heading home. But I think the remote working culture that has emerged may be changing some of that. And what COVID has shown is that remote working can be extremely successful for multiple industries, whether you're an IT professional, whether you're an HR professional, etc. And so, maybe we'll see less transience because of that. You might be able to send people home, but keep them working from home, and that home could be in Italy, India, wherever. I also think that post-COVID, as the vaccines kick into place, we'll see more confidence around employees travelling and working in other areas. So whereas we might have seen a transience before just in the expat population, we could see an emerging transience in the Saudi population. So young, talented, capable Saudis deciding, yes, I've done some work in Saudi, now I want to work in Dubai, or now I want to spend some time in Paris. So I think the transients around populations, that remote working and what that emerging Saudi talent base will do are quite dynamic. And I think in the next couple of years will be very interesting. Saudization is also known as the Saudi Nationalisation Scheme, and it reflects some of the initiatives that are going on in the region and other countries as well. So again, we have this enormous wave of young, talented Saudis. They need to be employed, they need to be productive. So they're very much coming into the workforce, and the government is mandating in certain industries where it's compulsory to employ a Saudi colleague or Saudi population. But what that's done is it's actually created a war for talent. I think particularly in government service, I understand salaries are increasing, and that war for talent has implications on employers in several areas. First of all, can you get the Saudi talent? I know there are shortages in engineers, architects, IT, medical specialists. So it's that war for talent to obtain the talent. Obtaining that talent might push up salaries, but I think then particularly for EB around medical programs, that has an implication as well. So if you employ expat workers, their dependency ratio around medical might be 1.1, say. For Saudi colleagues, it's going to be 3, 4 plus. So Saudisation, incredibly positive thing. I think it's been enormously successful and will accelerate, but it brings some challenges with it as well. In terms of attraction retention, isn't this interesting? I mean, a year or two ago, we'd have said attraction retention's about making sure your benefits are shiny, that your salaries are good, and that you're promoting those. Really, COVID has shown never has it been so important for companies to address attraction retention. And I think around that, what employees are doing is they're looking at how companies behave during the COVID crisis. So whether I was kept on, whether I had a pay cut, whether I was redundant, whether there was an impact on some benefits, the way organisations behave will have a lasting impact, maybe certainly in the short term and maybe in the medium term, in how they might be able to attract and retain people. And I think communication there has been absolutely key. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Communication around, staying at home, staying at safe, working home. Employers will judge employers on how they behave during that period, and also how they promoted and communicated their benefits program. COVID-19, well, that's interesting too, isn't it? I mean, broadly, you would have to say KSA has, to date, managed the COVID-19 pandemic incredibly well. I think travel restrictions, border controls, employees staying at home, restaurants, etc., shutting down for a period. You've only got to look at the contagion rate and the death rate compared to some countries. And so far, inshallah, it's been quite a success. The government, of course, stepped in around treatment, diagnosis and treatment, and looking after folk. Now, what that did was it took pressure off medical programs. And Omar will talk about this a little bit later on. But consumption on medical programs dropped, and dropped quite dramatically for some months. So people avoided elective treatment. They didn't want to go to a clinic or a hospital because they thought they might get COVID. So we had very low flow of patients, and medical programs experienced dramatically improving loss ratio. That is not necessarily what's going to happen in the future. So Omar will talk to consumption coming back quite rapidly. So people now have an increased level of confidence that the country's managed it well. They see the vaccines on the horizon. They see a potential return to normal, albeit it might be a new normal. And they're now getting all those elective treatments done. And they're now returning to hospitals and clinics. And so I think for some organisations, they might be thinking, well, we had this very low consumption in 2020. That'll flow through to program savings in 2021. Not necessarily the case. And again, Omar will talk about that in greater detail. Back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Mark. Brilliant. So one of the reports that we will be providing you is the Medical Trends Report. And this is a global report that was conducted within May and June of this year. We had roughly 250 insurers that took part of it, and around 50 countries that took part as well. The main part of this report, and again, this report explains it so much better than I am, is kind of trying to understand what is a medical trend. The medical trend, as you can see from the very bottom, is a different saying to what we're doing, what we've done previously. So for some of our clients, they might have just heard the phrase medical inflation. But as a global collective, we're now using the phrase medical trends. So what is medical trend? So medical trends is made up as 4 parts. The first part, as you can see on the bottom left, is the medical inflation. So this is this magic number that changes from year to year. So what do the doctors charge? What do the hospitals charge? What are the overall packages charges? It's kind of that costly amount of actual medical treatment. But again, just as Mark was saying, we've got a change in behaviour, we've got a change in treatment, and that's kind of the change in treatment mix. So yes, we had lockdown, we had prevention of elective treatment in mid-summer of 2020, but now people are slowly going back to the hospitals. They've got that confidence that they're not going to get infected, COVID or any other reason. But taking that a step lower, how does that impact it? So we think about delay prevention. So someone might have been pre-diabetic, but by the time they go into hospital, they might be diabetic. And again, the consequences of type 2 diabetes we know are slowly emerging within the region. Amputations, loss of sight, all of those complications are slowly coming through. We think about cancer, the cost of treatment if it's caught early in stage 1 versus the cost of treatment and the length of treatment if it's caught later, stage 3 and 4. So yes, we did have that delay. In some months we saw very low utilization, but there is a knock-on effect of that delayed treatment. And that's kind of what change in treatment mix talks about. The second part is the change of utilization. So again, change of behavior. For some younger people who kind of thought they were resilient to the COVID, they maybe didn't change their behavior as much. But for some of our older generations, they might have done a severe lockdown. So again, not going out, not meeting family, really taking into account that isolation. So again, what has that caused in terms of delays or change of costings within 2020? And finally, regulatory changes. So again, as Mark said, there was a lot of regulation in the kingdom about what was covered and what was not. So again, that does have a knock-on effect. But again, when you think about it, there's all these extra charges. So there's the extra costs surrounding the PPE, the protection equipment, extra charges around nurses and cleaning. So again, there's all of these factors that impact health trends. And I think the one thing I really want to take away is kind of this magic number. So 71% of insurers within the NEA region do believe that medical trend will increase from 2020 up to 2021. So again, we do need to have this conversation around budgeting, around increasing maybe that budget for 2021, because things are going to change. Next page. So current risk factors within the current medical trends. So a great bit of insight within these two reports is talking about what risks are we noticing. Some of these are going to be on a global status, some of them are region, and some of them are country specific. But I think Adiba, this is kind of where you see a lot of this claims risk coming in. So the main thing, or the first thing we want to be talking about, is kind of the health factors. So again, metabolic rate, which is all kind of to do with diabetes. So again, people being pre-diabetic, moving into that diabetic stages, and the consequences of type 2 diabetes. It's the cardiovascular, so whether that's heart attack, stroke, hypertension, raised blood pressure, long-term chronic medication to monitor those situations. And then what we're calling occupational risks. So this is really kind of the lifestyle risks. So it's the non-communicable diseases that we know are lifestyle affected. So lack of exercise, lack of sleep, lack of water, poor nutrition, fatty food, fast food. All of these lifestyle effects lead to certain medical conditions that we're just seeing more and more of within the claims data. How do we monitor that? How do we control that? That's what these reports talk about. Another thing that again is probably quite unique to 2020 is the rise in talking about mental health and emotional support. Now we are very aware that mental health is still a taboo within some countries, some more than others. But 2020 has really brought mental health to the forefront. We had lockdown, we had isolation, we had people scared. Is my family going to catch it? Am I going to lose my job? What about my salary? We had these uncertainties that we never really had before. So how do people cope with that? What's their resilience levels? How are they coping with these scared feelings? For some people, they're managing. They're chatting to family, they're having social Zooms, meditation, yoga, those type of things. But for some people, there are consequences. So whether that's smoking or shisha or eating more, not looking after your body, again, these are consequences of what we'll start showing within the data of 2021. So clients just need to be aware of this and trying to mitigate some of these risks. Thirdly, we're talking about childhood and malnutrition. Now, again, this is kind of for the MEA region. So I kind of think of Africa in this stage. But when I think about Saudi, when I think about what can affect our children, I think about air pollution. I think about air conditioning. I think about asthma. Our lungs have not been designed to be breathing in this process there. Our malls, our schools, our cars, everywhere is this process there. So again, how is that affecting our childhood lungs? Another thing we're starting to see within the claims data is autism, ADHD. Now, some of this is down to better detection from schools, from nurses, kind of that at-school activity. But for some of it, it's kind of being more open about, is my child okay? Do I need to get them detected? That's kind of generally what we see within the region. And then finally, sort of traffic violence and safety. And again, this is more kind of Africa, Southern America. But for me, I think of traffic. So for some countries in lockdown, there was no cars on the road. So again, great reduction, air pollution, traffic accidents. But as we're slowly going back to the office, we are getting back into our cars. We are starting to see more traffic on the road and consequently potentially more car crashes and things. And that's kind of what we're seeing within region at the moment. Next page. So now I would love for you guys to start. We're going to have our first polling question of today's session with a total of 3. So this is thinking about you, thinking about your organisation. What are the key drivers of medical costs in your organisation? Health risks, such as metabolic, cardiovascular, dietary, lifestyle events. Emotional and mental well-being. Childhood and malnutrition. Traffic, violence and safety. So we're going to keep the poll open for about a minute, and if you can just tick the one that resonates most with your organisation, we'll then talk about the results. So Valentina will keep that open for a while. Okay, do we have the results, Valentina? Brilliant, thank you very much. So this is now where we're going to get some insights from the panelists. So coming out forefront and centre with 71% of the vote is the health risk. So again, the cardiovascular, the mental health. Coming in joint second would be the emotional and mental support and childhood, and no for traffic. So Adiba, this is probably where your expertise comes in, is sort of heading up the regional data analytics within the kingdom. So is this generally what you see, what you're kind of talking to your clients about within Saudi?
Definitely, yes. Health risks, metabolic, cardiovascular disease. We do see diabetes, type 1, type 2, upper respiratory tract infection, which relates more towards pollution. So that might relate to point number 3. But definitely number 1, that's the most frequent.
Again, some of these are lifestyle events, some of these are preventative, which again opens up that conversation of how do we control that risk.
Yes.
Mark, Omar, any thoughts on this? Is this kind of what you would expect to see from your conversations you have with your Saudi clients?
This is the same that we're talking about, mostly about those chronic conditions and normal medical conditions or emergency medical condition. As we mentioned during the lockdown, the only treatment that were being utilized are the chronic treatments, emergency treatment, which falls mostly under those medical conditions, as well also the the maternity treatment also as well during the lockdown overall. But these are the most conditions during the lockdown period.
Brilliant. Thank you, Omar. Brilliant. So that's
I
our
was
first
going
panel.
to say, Sam, I think where a company truly understands how those risks are playing out within their population may be reflected in the medical program. Off the back of that, they can come up with specific health and wellness initiatives, education, focused treatment, etc. So, it's probably a gradual thing to improve, but certainly one that's incredibly important.
Thank you, Mark. Brilliant. So we're now going to, next couple of slides are talking about the second report that is available to you. So this is all about benefit cost containment strategies. So we as a company and organization, we don't just want to give you high level theoretical advice. We want to give you practical advice. So we've broken these down into 3 different steps. And I'm going to spend the next few minutes deep diving and giving you a little bit of practical advice about each one of those. If we go to the next slide, we're talking about designing for value. And again, this is kind of the key word, the value part. And it's all about the plan design, the table of benefit. What it talks about in the report, and I think it's really good, is it still fit for purpose? Does our benefit plan, whether we look at the table of benefits, the life scheme, the overall health and wellbeing strategy, does it still fit for purpose for 2021? Or is it just something that we've always had and we've just kind of rolled over the kind of the ethos within that? Designing for value is also looking at risk appetite. So were there any gaps in coverage? Was pandemic covered? Was there any real insight that we noted working from home isolation really caused? Another thing about designing for value is talking about the market norm. So again, this is kind of that benchmarking conversation. And a lot of our clients want to be mid-market. But what does mid-market now look like in this new normal going into 2021? Has the benefits changed? Has this mid-market changed? Do we still want to just be mid-market? Or are some of our clients really evolving this conversation and they actually want to be employers of choice? So again, it's looking at it holistically. And finally, it's that kind of quality of care. So is where people are going, the different hospitals, the different pathways, the different networks, is that giving us value for money? Are we getting the best optimal cost out of that? Centres of excellence, pathways, are we really understanding the network coverage? So they're the conversations we have when we talk about designing for value. The next slide, we're talking about managing health risks. And again, insurance is all about risk. We know medical insurance is expensive. Millions of Saudi riyals, millions of dollars is being spent on benefit plans. So are we getting the best out of it? So one part that the report talks about is all about preventative measures. Why be reactive to a situation? Why not try and be proactive? So why not think about health screenings, occupational health, returning to the office, the strategic approaches that our clients need to ensure we're keeping our clients safe until the vaccine comes out, until this herd immunization happens. It's about online risk assessment. It's about knowing your numbers. A great saying I once heard is, how can I understand my health if I don't know my health? So again, it's that individual taking responsibility for understanding their health risks. It's about using data. It's about using claims reports. It's about using that analytics to understand that gap risk. We have high cost claims. How are they being managed? How are we ensuring that they're seeking the best possible treatment with that value for money? So numbers of days in hospital, certain treatment courses, certain medical conditions, drugs, therapies, surgeries, etc. How is that being managed? Chronic diseases. Have we got any pathways in place? Have we got centres of excellence? Do we know that our risk categories are actually seeking that best course of treatment? And this all comes back to kind of the wellness barrier. So within any organisation, your population will be split into 4 separate parts. The well will really engage in their health. Very few underlying health risks, want to get better. what we concentrate on in the wellness barriers is at-risk group. So these are people that are potentially overweight, pre-diabetic, high blood pressure. But again, there's not always symptoms for some of these conditions. So it's the variance of the conversation, it's the strategy of how do we control this risk? How do we understand the data to ensure that we are managing this long term? Because all of these strategies are multi-pronged, multi-year approaches that we need to start having conversations with our clients. We need to understand the broader picture and this holistic journey that we all want to go on. And then finally, the report talks about driving efficiency. So again, it's thinking outside the box. It's challenging the status quo. It's challenging the contract. So for some of our clients, we're talking about global pooling, global underwriting. Some of our largest clients, we're talking about captive. Do we need to stay on a fully insured contract? Should we talk about stop losses, deferred billing, global underwriting, change in payment terms? It's about having that financial conversation with the insurers and ensuring that your financial approach matches and can enhance what we want to offer as well. It's about reducing fraud and abuse. So we know that the region is not as bad as it was, say, 10, 15 years ago, but we do know that there are certain fraud and abuse cases that still happen. So how is that being managed? How is that being monitored? How is that risk being mitigated? It's about employees being part of this journey as well. So again, driving efficiency, streamlining processes, ensuring HR has got the support, not spending hours of time on census management and compliance data, but thinking about how do I digitalize this? How do I make it employee centric? And the next slide we're going to be talking about is kind of our solution to that. So again, digital platform, streamlining and employee centric. So we're now going to go to our second poll. So that's kind of what we've talked about. So what we would like for you to start asking now is, what are the key strategic investments that you are considering for your organization in the future? So are we talking data and analytics? Are we talking care-focused, value-driven benefit design plans, provider management, digital health, virtual health, web-based solutions, or are you thinking about wellness programs? So what is your key strategic investment that you are considering for your organization in the future? So please feel free to answer, and then again, we'll open it up to the panelists to talk about the results. Right, we should be having through the results in a moment. Interesting. So coming out first, we have got the care-focused, value-driven benefit plan design at 35%. Coming in second, digital virtual care, web-based self-solutions for employees. Joint third, no, we've got a standard third is the, joint third is the provider management and the data and analytics. And then coming up fourth is the wellness programs. So opening up to the panelists, is this what you were expecting to see? Adiba, so again, you're very much sort of regional head for data analytics. So data analytics coming in joint second, just generally.
Yeah. I'm quite surprised, to be honest, because I may be biased towards data and analytics. The way I see it, I mean, we use data analytics, looking at claims, understanding the cost drivers of the program. We really used it during the COVID-19 pandemic to help our clients make decisions during facing uncertainty around where claims are going to look like and what the future is going to look like. I mean, data analytics, in my view, was central in the decision making. I'm quite surprised with these numbers, but definitely value-driven benefit plan design would also be on the top of the list as well, which I see that's number one.
Brilliant, thank you.
I think on the last question there was a strong theme around chronic diseases, etc., being a real concern to organisations. So I can see why the care-focused aspects come through strongly.
Yeah. Supplying support, guidance, centres of excellence for some of these chronic diseases, yes. Omar, so heading up the placement in the kingdom, you're obviously sort of on that conversation with insurers. So value-driven benefit plan design, is this kind of what you were expecting to see?
Mostly what we see mostly from, we depend mostly for the placement part, we depend mostly on the data provide to us and to help us with the highlight to benefits to the pricing clients are targeting, along with the maintaining the same benefits. But what we see mostly now, like we see some of the clients, let's say multinational large clients, also are asking for benefits related to wellness.
Yeah. So I think we can all agree that this is a multi-pronged approach. There is so many factors that make up consulting around medical insurance and the wider value proposition. So thank you, guys. Right, so we're nearly coming to the end. So we've got one more slide. So these are kind of really emerging trends that are happening within the region at the moment. So I'm just going to very quickly sort of come through, and then again, if anyone from the panelists just kind of wants to sort of touch in. So the biggest thing that we are talking about, and probably something that I'm really excited, is this whole flexible benefit package. We have a solution called Darwin, but the Kingdom, Saudi, the rest of the MENA region, our clients are wanting this solution. They are understanding that one plan design, one offering doesn't fit all. We've got different benefits, we've got different offerings that we want. They're talking about communication. So again, how do I speak to my employees? And maybe they're not in the office. How do I communicate? So it's not just a once a year thing. Again, it's about that continual engagement, that continual understanding value. There's also lots of conversations around hospitals and pharmaceutical charges. So again, how can we control costs? How can we ensure that the insurers are managing our claims fund? They're looking after our money to make it sustainable. Telemedicine services. So this is a big thing that's come out of 2020. How do I seek medical support when I physically couldn't get into the hospital? So again, the telemedicine sort of solution came in, and now employees are realizing this is a great offering. Let's continue this journey and this conversation into the future. And then finally, as sort of all three in the panelists are saying, it's about controlling this cost around chronic care, chronic diseases. So that's kind of what we're seeing within the market. Very quickly, Mark, sort of anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Look, if I could just touch on flex or flexible benefits. We're seeing a surge of this in KSA now, and I think it's reflecting where organisations were at and where they want to be post-COVID. So, you know, when you think about benefit designs, it's often a paternal approach. I join a company and a company says, I've got this salary, I've got medical, I've got a car allowance, and that's it. But a particular individual, that might not appeal to them. It mightn't suit their particular circumstances. So I think we'll see organisations wanting to reimagine their benefit design and their offerings to their employees, and to have it evolve around employees' needs and their life stages. So for instance, I've got a young employee, they're interested in cash, card, travel, fitness solutions, middle-aged employees. You know, they've got children with dependents, you know, they might want childcare, they're interested in career progression, they need financial wellness. And then later on in life, employees that want to look, you know, better healthcare, you know, a work-life balance, greater annual leave, they might want to travel again as well, and they're particularly concerned about retirement savings. So if organisations want to attract and retain people in each of those life cycles, and they do, then they need to create flexible options for employees to have a much greater choice around where their salary is spent.
Thank you, Mark. So we've just got one final poll, and then we're going to open up to Q&A. So if anyone has got any questions that's on the WebEx today, please feel free just to write it down in the Q&A. So everything myself and Adiba, Omar and Mark have talked to you about is from these two great reports. So Balancing Cost and Empathy of Employee Benefits, and then the Global Health Trend Report. So benefit that truly benefit. Both of these reports will be available for download tomorrow. So everyone that has listened today will be sent an email from our marketing team, and you will be able to download both of these reports. And I cannot stress how insightful those reports are. I haven't done them justice. They are really, really insightful and actually really interesting to read. So please feel free to do that. So finally, we're going to have our final poll of today. So again, just as we've done before, which topics are you most interested in within 2021? So again, think about what you want 2021 to look like. What do you want to target as an HR department, finance, procurement department, etc. So do we want to start using data to understand employees' behavior and utilization? Do we want more cost containment solutions? Do we want more digital health solutions? Or do we want to concentrate on employee engagement and wellness? So again, what do you want to concentrate on within the future? So again, just as before, we'll leave it open for a couple. Just a final reminder, any Q&As, any questions you have, please feel free to write it in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. So, very interesting. This is a good one. So coming out first, only minor though, but coming out first, we're talking about employee engagement and well-being. Coming out second, we're talking about understanding data in terms of employee behavior and utilization, and then also cost containment solutions. And then coming out last is the digital health solutions. So this kind of rolls nicely sort of into our final Q&As. So again, Mark, looking at this, so we have actually had a question that has come in earlier. What trends are we kind of seeing coming within 2021? So when you have conversations with clients, is that employee engagement and that well-being, is that kind of top of their agenda?
Well, it's absolutely critical. And, I spoke about the communication levels that are happening in organisations, at a global level, maybe at a regional level, and certainly at a local level. There's been acceleration of that. I think employees have been concerned about whether they're, in stages. Does our medical program respond? Does our group life program respond? So I think in the next year or two, you will see companies starting to reimagine their benefits. What was important during COVID? What's important going forward? How can we get advice and solutions to deliver on that? When you look at flex benefits, there's a lot of advice to design it, and there's platforms to deliver it. So I think we're going to see a sea change away from here's your mandatory benefits, please accept them, to much more choice for employees going forward. And that point about data to understand employee behaviour and utilisation sort of dovetails into that. How do we vary our employee benefit programs based on what we know, not just medical, but in other areas as well.
So Adiba, what were sort of the key lessons that you learned from 2020 in terms of sort of data and analytics, and kind of how has the Saudi market evolved, and how do you think it's going to evolve in the future?
I think it's definitely the need to be flexible. The importance of data analytics in closely monitoring the performance of a program. There's two parts to increasing in cost. There's some factors that are outside of our control, like regulatory changes, inflation, and so on, and some of those factors that you mentioned earlier on. But then there's also factors that are specific to a particular program. And that's what you can find in the claims data. When we're analyzing, studying the claims data, trying to identify trends that are specific to a particular company or a particular industry, and then also providing advice through the HR on what they can do to mitigate some of those costs or contain some of those costs, whether it's making changes to the benefits or also making certain changes internally, like encouraging lifestyle changes, certain initiatives that might help improve the overall well-being. And that's, I mean, that's what we, where the data analytics can really add value to the HR and to the business.
Yeah, so it helps add that business case. It adds that kind of quantitative and qualitative data when we talk about it. So,
definitely, yes.
Yeah. And what would you like to see come out more from the insurers, or how would you like the conversation to go within 2021? Like, what would be your wish list of what you would like to be doing and talking about in 2021?
Definitely having a higher level of granularity in terms of the data that we receive to really understand, for example, telemedicine and virtual consultations. It's relatively new. I mean, I only ever heard of it starting from March 2020, when we really started to hear about virtual consultations. So it's really being able to observe these trends and also see how that might affect the utilization and the behavior of members. So you've got something that's relatively new here in KSA, and also uncertainty on whether there's going to be a convenience factor, whether that might actually drive up the cost of the program. So it's, from my perspective, it's more observing the new trends that might emerge through 2021 and onwards.
Brilliant, thank you. Omar, so obviously you're heading up placement within the kingdom. So what were a lot of the conversations that you were having within 2020?
For 2020, this was exceptional year, and what we have achieved in terms of commercial pricing was, I think, fair for most of our clients in terms of pricing. I would say that the pricing was flat or lower than the current, but now we're having discussion with the clients that 2021, as you mentioned, that we will experience an increase in the pricing. I would say that the average pricing of increase is going to be from 5 to 7%. Some of the hospitals with high unit costs may increase their pricing with double-digit increase, especially those high unit cost providers were able to produce solutions related to telemedicine when the pandemic started here in Saudi Arabia. But 2021, will be like, this is the communication with the clients are going now for the time being. And also there is also discussion also on if for the clients, if they want to invest more by implementing either cost containment, wellness, that can help them to have a sustainable program either for short term or for long term also as well.
Yeah.
This is what is happening now these days with the clients for 2021.
Yeah, I'm loving the fact that we're hearing that it's kind of a long-term plan. So again, clients are realizing that this is a journey that they need to think about, and kind of, again, not just 1 year in silos. So it's really good to hear. So Mark, we've also had a question come through about sort of wellness and mental health. So again, very aware that mental health is still sometimes seen as a taboo. How are some of the local conversations around mental health? What are we talking about?
I think that mental health conversation has rapidly changed, and if organisations were wary of it in the past, they are no longer so, because they have employees who are working remotely at home, maybe cautious or afraid, and they need that sort of help. So I think most organisations would have employee assistance programs. They'll have mental health initiatives in there. We're certainly seeing it embedded in some of the employee benefit programs, particularly around group life and disability. And that will be ongoing. I think this whole communication trend that has accelerated through COVID will just continue going forward. I think organisations will review their wellness initiatives. So if they've got a calendar of events or happenings throughout the year, you know, what are they going to do themselves? What might an insurer provide? What might someone like Marsh provide? How does that all dovetail together? And I think come back to the employee philosophy, what sort of feedback the organisation's getting, what sort of strategies does HR have in place to keep its employees healthy and fit, particularly from a mental perspective. And we know the vaccine's coming, but it mightn't be coming as fast as many of us would like. So it will be an ongoing, enduring issue for organisations.
Yeah. So how do we start that conversation? So say a client has done nothing, has been scared of that conversation. What kind of advice can you give to sort of?
Yeah. So when we look at a medical program, we take a holistic view of it, and you need to take a holistic view. So all the aspects that we've talked about, advisory, employee needs, the analytics to determine the performance, the placement to make sure the right price and a sustainable price is secured. You know, ongoing management, periodic reviews. A key part of that for us is the wellness piece. So we do want to sit down with HR and other stakeholders and understand what they're doing. Do they have employee surveys around this? Would they like us to do employee surveys for them? We can certainly do that. And create a strategic plan around it. And again, often it's a calendar of events with a long-term view of where they want to be. We do specific things, for instance, put in an ad for us, specific things like our smart patient presentation, or we can do events within the organisation. We can communicate on certain themes. You know, is it diabetes? Is it anti-smoking? So it's a matter of bringing together feedback from the organisation as to employee needs, what they're seeing, and creating, a number of parties may be involved to create that strategic plan around wellness.
Yeah. And I had a great conversation with a Saudi client a couple of weeks ago, and they kind of had this fear of using mental health. So we said, why not call it emotional support? So again, when we are talking mental health, we don't have to use those words. We can use other words. We can just start the journey. And something that we're doing internally is, again, we have the monthly newsletters. So we talk about stress, we talk about depression, anxiety, isolation. So again, we're humanizing it. So again, I think that's very important support that clients are asking for.
Yes, and I also think historically people have thought that was sort of a permanent thing, but you'll have high-performing, incredibly capable employees that might suffer from it for a period. They recover. You know, they've been largely productive all the way through. They may suffer from it again. There's still a highly valued, capable employee that needs to be supported during that period.
Yeah. And I read a great report the other day, and it was all about making a safe environment. And if employees want to reach out, who do they go to? So again, there might be that, I don't want to go and speak to HR. So have a digital solution, have a digital mental health support. So again, you're kind of not openly to talk about it. So that's great.
Yeah, and the other thing is EAP services, employee assistance services, are confidential.
Yeah, 100%, yeah. It's just getting used to it and kind of what does it offer as well. And I think the great thing about employee assistance program is that it's not just a mental health or emotional support. It could be financial support. It could be, my children are going off to university, I don't know how to cope. I'm an expat, how do I kind of localize? There's a broad range of topics in there. So again, it's not just that mental, emotional support. So, cool. Omar, coming back to you and sort of looking to the future. So you obviously speak to the insurers on a daily basis as sort of head of placement. What conversations would you love to have in 2021? So how would you like the insurers to start changing or altering or introducing new benefits to their offerings?
I would say mostly for the wellness benefits. And they're flexible, and I would like them to be more flexible when clients are applying cost containments. Sometimes they are reluctant to consider clients will for cost containment, and some of them they may not offer like a competitive pricing at initial stage when we talk to them about cost containment and wellness. And I believe that by time these things will see more flexible market to consider reasonable adjustment to the premium based on the client will to apply cost containment and wellness.
Yeah. So it's more of a mature consultative conversation that you're having rather than kind of that transactional conversation.
Yep.
Brilliant. Adiba, sort of some final words, very conscious of times. And again, just a final shout out. If anyone has got any questions, please feel free to write that in the end. So Adiba, just sort of final thoughts, final sort of wrap up of 2020, looking forward to 2021. Kind of how have you found it? And again, just sort of conversations that you're having with clients.
It has definitely been an interesting year, 2020. As I mentioned before, data analytics. I see data analytics. I see us continuing to build on data analytics into 2021 and forward. Monitoring claims, looking at cost containment options, building on what Omar just touched on, having the flexibility in making these changes to your benefits and customizing your program to meet your particular needs or your employees' particular needs. And for me, it's data analytics all the way. I mean, I believe in its added value, in its ability to support companies make business decisions, and its ability to help make decisions on cost containment and maintaining the stability of your premiums over the next number of years. Of course, subject to there's going to be incidents that are unexpected, such as COVID-19 changes to the regulation, but it's trying to limit the impact on the cost of the program in the short term and the medium term as well.
Thank you, Adiba. Omar or Mark, any sort of final thoughts on this final WebEx for 2020?
Yeah, I think absolutely key to take this holistic approach to the program, and with the emphasis on the analytics, because, you know, if you don't understand it, you can't manage it. And if you can't manage it, you lose governance and control. So taking that holistic approach enables you to take a short, medium and long-term view and have the governance and control that's required on these programs for the benefit of your employees and also for the benefit of the organisation, because when you think about it, most of these programs are a huge spend.
Thank you, Mark. Omar, any final thoughts?
Just only for what we encourage more the customers to have more view to their data, because having more views to the data, that will help them to understand more what actions needed, whether for the current or for the future, and we can help and support more with the team for Adiba is leading to help them to take better decision related to the medical cost and also the coverage that they're looking for.
Yeah, thank you, Omar. So thank you, Adiba. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone who's listened. So I hope you can understand sort of final takeaway. This is a multi-pronged, multi-year strategic conversation that we would love to be having with you. You will be receiving a link of this recording and also the slides, but over the next couple of weeks and into sort of 2021, your Marsh consultant will be reaching out to you and will be touching base on these two reports. So you will be able to have that personalized conversation surrounding these two great topics. So we are literally on the hour, and I just want to say again a massive thank you for joining us. I know it's a very, very busy time of year and year end, so we do massively appreciate our clients taking an hour out of their day. And have a great new year. Happy and healthy 2021. And thank you so much for listening to the final WebEx of 2020 with Marsh Saudi. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.